Hi everyone, today I'm doing my January wrap-up. In January I was able to read 7 books, so pretty okay with that. Let's get going. So the first, I kind of just put them in random order. So the first book is Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. This is a book that I think my mom read to me when I was young, but it's been so many years since then, so I decided to read it again, and it was really good. So this is a story of a girl named Lucy Manette. She finds out that her father, who was wrongly imprisoned in France, is alive, so she goes to get him. When they're coming back to England, they meet Charles Darnay, they fall in love, and then there's this whole thing of he was accused of being a spy for France, and then through his trial, they meet more people, they meet Sidney Carton, and just many more characters. It's a really good book. It's the way Charles Dickens writes is very descriptive, kind of like J.R.R. Tolkien, where he'll take like a page or 2 pages just to describe something. So there was a couple parts where I was like, okay, let's get to the story. But that being said, it was still easy to follow the story. It wasn't, even if you went off like to describe the streets of Paris for 2 pages, it wasn't that long for me. The characters, of course, this is a classic, so the characters are just very vivid. You have Lucy Manette, she's just very kind, sweet. You have Sidney Carton, the tortured soul. You have her father, who has been imprisoned in the prison in France, so he has his demons he needs to deal with. So overall, I really enjoyed it. I would give this 4 stars out of 5. If you haven't read any of Charles Dickens' stories, I would probably choose this one first. It was about 170 or 270 pages, so it was not that long and thick. But yeah, so Tale of Two Cities. This book did make me want to read The Scarlet Pimpernel, especially in the last chapter. I really wanted to read The Scarlet Pimpernel after that. Those of you who have read this book know what I mean. The next book I read was Snow White, a graphic novel by Matt Flynn. I saw this on someone's YouTube when they were recommending retellings of fairy tales, and this is Snow White but set during the 1920s. So I just really liked that premise. The illustrations in here I really enjoyed. So I think I saw 1 or 2 illustrations on Amazon when I got it, and then I just knew I had to get it. So this is a story, Snow White, but it's set during the 1920s, so her father, he's not a king, but he's like a big-time stockbroker who didn't get pulled into, or his fortune didn't get lost in the Great Depression. And then the mom, the stepmother is like from the Roaring Twenties and singer, and so yeah, just some really pretty illustrations. The red in the apple. So this only took me about 20 minutes to read because just the word bubbles were pretty fast to read. But if you like retellings and if you like artwork, I would definitely put this in your collection because I really enjoyed it. So the next one is The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. I saw it on sale at Barnes & Noble, and I kept hearing a lot of stuff about it, so I had to read it. This is a story of a lady named Anna Fox. She's kind of a recluse, stuck in her house, and she kind of spies on her neighbors. And then one day she kind of sees something she shouldn't with her new neighbors, and that kind of starts spiraling into what happens after that. It is an adult thriller. It is very gripping. Anna is, not only is she a recluse, but she kind of drinks too much and takes pills. So there has been tragedy in her life, so that's kind of why she's starting to do it. But she lies to all the people around her, like, no, I'm not drinking too much, I'm doing good. No, I'm not mixing my pills, oh, I'm just tired, da-da-da-da. But because she's not open and honest and trying to change herself, just things start spiraling, and people don't believe her when she starts saying she stole stuff. And then that, starts making things even more happen with the people around her. The writing is very easy to read, so that's one of the reasons why I like this book. The chapters are only a couple pages, so because they're a couple pages and the writing is fairly easy to read, you kind of just go through it pretty fast. I would definitely give this 3 or 4 stars out of 5. If you want a good thriller, I would definitely say this one. It's been a while since I've read a good thriller. I think the last one was Girl on a Train, and that was a while ago. I tried to read a couple ones, but other ones, I think The Girl Next Door, and I just couldn't get through that one. But this one was really good. One thing is that for me, I try to root for Anna. She's going through all this stuff, and she's seeing all this stuff, and you want her to do well, and you want her to, shape up her life, and you want her to be honest throughout, the whole book. So she's not an unsympathetic character. So I really like that, too. So there's that one. The next book I read was probably, I think, the first book I read this month was Marillas Batman. I always like superhero stories, and I was super excited for this to come out. This is a story of a teenage Bruce Wayne, and he does some reckless stuff one day and ends up doing community service at Arkham Asylum. And there he meets someone from a gang that's trying to destroy Gotham City. I don't know if it was because I didn't know a lot about Wonder Woman, that I think I like this book better than the Wonder Woman book that came out a while ago in this series. There's these little nods throughout the book to the original Batman series, and you can tell that Marie Lu definitely did her research when writing this book. It was adventurous. Of course, it's a teenage Bruce Wayne, so there's times when you're like, come on, Bruce, don't you know? What are you doing? But it's definitely an adventure one. It almost feels like an episode of a Batman series, the whole thing. Just because it kind of, there's the bad guys, and he has to get them. So, yes, if you like superhero books, if you like Batman, definitely check this one out. The next one I read was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is a book that has been getting a lot of hype on YouTube, and people just kept raving about it, so I was like, okay, people keep talking about it, what is this about? I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, so I kind of see the hype. So this is a story of a girl named Jude, and Jude and her sisters, after they see their parents being murdered, they go to, the person who murders them takes them to the land of fairies. And so she grows up in the land of fairies. and fairies are not nice people. So she starts to see just the wickedness and the intrigue and all sorts of that stuff in the royal courts. And there's this person that she just doesn't like at all, Prince Cardin. And she's like, he's evil. Throughout their whole childhood, he's just been mean to her. So she's like, I don't like this guy. But things start happening. A lot of people have compared this to like Game of Thrones. And through the first like 1/3 of the book, I was like, well, maybe. But after the first third, I couldn't put it down. And it was like, yes, this is like Game of Thrones. There's murder, there's intrigue, there's lying, deception. And because of all that, just makes it a very fast-paced read and just very gripping. It's not as graphic as I imagine Game of Thrones to be, but it's really good. I would definitely give this a 4 stars out of 5. So if you like fantasy books, fairies, court intrigue, Game of Thrones, you'll definitely like this one. The last 2 books are sci-fi books. The first one is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I wanted to read this book because the movie's coming out, and I wanted to read the book before I saw the movie. This is a story about a boy named Wade Watts, and it's like 30 years in the future, and the whole world has just gone to pots, and because the world is such a depressing place, people have kind of retreated into this game called Oasis. So basically everyone has their gamer glasses on and are in this virtual world. And then one day, the creator of Oasis dies, and he says, hey, I put an Easter egg in this game of Oasis, and whoever finds it can have my whole fortune. So of course there's like a ton of people who go after it, but Wade Watts is the first one to actually like put the clues together of where these little things are to get to the Easter egg. And throughout the whole book, the creator of Oasis puts little clues, but in 80s pop culture references. So unless you've seen these movies from the 80s, or unless you know this music from the 80s, then you're going to not get the clues. This was just a adventurous, very high energy read. I like the character of Wade Watts. He's smart, but he's very relatable because just his thought processes and his like trying to make friends at his school, trying to survive, things like that. So I am very excited to see the movie since I've read this book. So, Ready Player One. And the last book I read is Artemis by Andy Weir. So I read The Martian, and I was very excited to read his next book. It's been, I think, quite a while since he came out with a book. And this is actually the British version of the book. And it has, like, the best cover. So this is a story of a girl named Jazz with Bashara. And she is kind of like, for lack of a better phrase, street urchin. Not a street urchin, but just someone who just does stuff for the higher up people in this world. So this is again 20-30 years in the future, and people are living on the moon. So she does things for people, and one day she has to do a heist. So this book is about a heist on the moon, and it was really fun. It was a really fun read. The way that Andy Weir writes science stuff is very accessible, so you don't feel like you're lost. And the way he writes about the moon, and how people live on the moon, and how they do this heist with the parameters of living on the moon. It was pretty fun. Jazz Bahara, though, so the main character in this book, I didn't like her as much as I liked the main character in The Martian. I liked him because I liked the main character in The Martian because he was funny, and even though he was in these like situations, he kept his humor and he kept his head, and he was just very, very likable. Even though she wasn't as likable as him, she definitely carried the story of this heist. So there's that. I would definitely give it a 3 or 4 stars out of 5. So there's that one. Anyway, those are the books that I've read in January. Hopefully I will read more in February. And hope you like this video. Like and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye.